Hello out there, all you incredible, incredible beings of Earth, the universe, and everywhere. I am Angela Wakefield, and this is Arise with Angela. And tonight I just felt so deeply moved to get on video and give you a message of hope for the future. Because there are so many energies swirling around right now that are trying to claw you back down from places that you have already arisen out of, and you don't have to go back. You get to decide to tell those energies, whatever they are, anger, hatred, fear, maybe uncertainty, doubt. There's so much right now in our collective that's fighting to try and keep us from realizing our full and total truth and the power that we house inside of ourselves as human beings. And when we are being in a state of mind or a state of existence, that's who we are in that moment. And that's why it's so important that we affirm those things over ourselves and say, I am peace. And feel it inside. Feel it run through you like an electric energy, like something that just swells your heart into this knowing of, yes, this is my truth. It feels good. I feel that energy coming down through whatever this matrix, vortex, flowing energy that just surrounds us everywhere in the air. The abundance of energy that is around us every moment of every day is absolutely astonishing when you stop to think about it. And we're learning to harness that as a species. Technology is changing. Things are catching up to places from our past, from millions of years past. And I am so honored and so privileged to have any part in this collective ascension that we are going through right now, that we are so excited, so overjoyed to get to see happen in this world. My soul is ancient. I'm not talking billions of years, I'm talking trillions of years. I have memories back to the creation of the dawn of time. And that may not be me, this incarnate Angela, but there is an energy that I am connected to in this ethereal realm that I am able to hear from, feel inside of me as if I lived these trillions of lives. And I have felt them all. I am what is known as an emotional vortex for this world. I was incarnated here onto this planet to come and live an extremely empathic, intuitive, knowing life. But I was bound for many, many, many years by the programming that gets placed into our hearts and our minds. For those of you who don't know, our hearts have 7 individual centers of neural activity, the same kind of cells that are in our brains, okay? They are connected deeply to the energies that go on here, and everything here inside of our head is magnetic. I mean, we have literally magnetic crystals in our brain structure. We have antenna-like branches of just neural pathways that pick up on things that are bigger and beyond what we as humans, until more recently, have been able to decipher and understand in scientific ways. And there are people who've known these things for centuries. And there are really good people out there who have tried to explain it and share it with us and tell us that they figured it out, that someone told them how it worked, and they started doing this thing we call affirmations. And they started speaking it real, and they started imagining what they wanted life to feel like. And it became. Because that's how simple and easy it is to change everything. Everything. I know this. Not at a heart level, not at a brain level, at a soul connection level. Just like I knew when I was younger that there was some power that was bigger than me that I was taught to call God. And I have no ill will toward my past. Did I have energetic damage from a lot of my religious upbringing? Absolutely. But we all do. And I am not here to besmirch or try to convince anyone out of their religion. This is a personal journey and choice. And you have to see the truth for yourself. I am not here to say that religion is bad or that it shouldn't exist. But there are parts of it that have been infiltrated by evil entities, what we would call evil, low vibrational energetic beings that feed off of you and your fears and your doubts and your worship and your sadness and despair and your thinking that you have no power and that all power is in the hands of someone else. It is okay to want to not be the one responsible for fighting your way out of the things that you have to fight through sometimes. But you know what is even more empowering than that? Knowing that you are the one who gets to decide. Nobody else makes the decision for you. And doesn't that feel good? You can decide that you want to leave it in the hands of life and let life happen to you as you've come here in your soul contract to do. Or you can decide, I've had enough of living hard and desperate and sad and exhausted and burned out. And I'm done with that life. And I won't live it anymore. And I'm going to make a new affirmation over myself. And I'm going to start just trusting, just like I believed whatever I was taught growing up. I'm going to throw it all out. And I'm going to just start trusting that there are people out there who've done the research. They've done the study. They've put these things together for themselves. You guys, when I figured out that there is black magic energy and wording that has been intentionally, historically implanted inside of what we call our Holy Bible and used against me my entire life, I was furious that I was taught to fear magic so that I would never figure out what was being done to me in the form of brainwashing. That does not make the Bible an evil book. It makes the men who changed it evil. It makes the parasitic energies who feed off of it evil. And that is what we are fighting. And some of these are flesh and blood, and they are in our systems. I did all this research on toxoplasmosis for a while, and I can't even tell you that much about it. I read about it, I studied it, I learned how it worked in our body. And then I studied ancient histories and all these things, and I've just, something told me that these parasites are smarter than we think they are. But because we're human and we think we're top of the food chain, even though they're living inside of us, feeding off of us, we still think we're at the top of the food chain. Come on, you guys. If you want to be at the top, we got to get there. But here's the thing. These toxoplasmatic species, they are highly sentient and intelligent. And they have figured out a way to take over the human body and the human mind because they get into our brain. They get into our brain tissue, okay? And if they are in our brain tissue, they have access to all our neural pathways and all the connections that go through our mind and our body. They spread through every single kind of mammal, basically, on the planet. But they can only breed in cats. Okay? Toxoplasmosis, it only breeds in cats. And we all love cats. And cats are not the enemy, okay? Cats are infected too. But it affects them differently than it affects the rest of us. See, toxoplasmosis makes wolves highly aggressive. It literally takes over their brain, turning them into an aggression zombie. And that wolf usually becomes the alpha in their pack. I read this in a scientific study. And when that wolf becomes alpha, it eventually gets so sick and so violent that it actually goes and seeks out a large cat, like a mountain lion or a cougar or whatever lives in its area, and challenges it until it's killed. And then the cat consumes it because what? Toxoplasmosis only breeds in cats. So it can live inside the wolf until it no longer has use of the wolf. And then it tells the wolf in its brain, go fight this cougar or this whatever, mountain lion. And then it can't win. It's just not stronger than that thing. Okay? And so through all this research, through all this learning that I've been doing, I came to the conclusion, and I can't prove it except for my knowing. I'm sure somebody could in this world. Somebody has the scientific knowledge, the factual basis, the ability to test it all, or maybe they just already know and they haven't told us because they use it against us. There's a lot of that out there. Sadly, but that is coming to an end. But what I came to the conclusion of is we are all infected with toxoplasmosis globally. And anyone who is behaving in a way that is not human and kind toward others, people who are behaving aggressively, narcissistically, evilly, doing things against others' consent, just non-human traits. They aren't sinful and broken. They weren't born that way. We don't come into this realm messed up. And I know this because I remember my own birth. I remember having my consciousness upon arrival. I remember it fading. I remember that feeling of that loss of memory, but there was still so much soul memory and knowing that I've had my whole life. And I'll get into that. I'll get into that some. But this whole idea is that we have been overridden by parasites that have energetically convinced us they don't even exist. And if they do, they're not harmful for us, not so much that we should really fight them. So, I also figured out, both through my biblical learning growing up, my biblical studies, and through all the homeopathic, holistic research that I've done over the past 20 years to try and figure out how to heal myself from what was diagnosed as pre-systemic lupus erythematitis. And I just said, well, at first I just went into denial. I was like, no, I don't have that. That can't be possible. And then I started studying everything I could because I had already been on a health journey. That's how I got my diagnosis. I was trying to find ways to fix myself because medicine wasn't working. I was on 5 psych meds at one time. At the same time, I ended up with a brain injury from a medication last November, and I have had to claw my way out. But I have learned about neuroplasticity, and I rebuilt that brain pathway. and I am reclaiming my life and my sovereignty and my divinity. And I am not letting any kind of toxoplasmic energy inside or outside of me control me anymore. I'm just not. I know that we can heal on a quantum level through the power of our thought and the power of our spoken words. And I know that I know this because I've done all the research, I've done all the studies. I've looked into it at a deep, deep level. My husband would tell you that I have an insatiable need to consume all the information all day, every day, until I hit an information minimum consumption. And if I can't do that, I don't function well. And I didn't understand that urgency, that drive, it almost felt like insanity, right? My whole life. When I was a little kid, I asked for an encyclopedia set for my 7th birthday. And then I read it all from cover to cover over the next year and a half or so. I read an entire Grey's Anatomy book at the age of 6 because I was fascinated by the human body. I used to just research and study and research and study. I could never learn enough fast enough, and I didn't understand why until I started to spiritually awaken to my absolute truth of being, of who I am, why I was created, why I came here. And my ego is doing everything it can to stop me from saying these things tonight. Okay? A lot of times we have an ego death, and in doing so, we have to admit that we are not who we think we are. Actually, that's kind of ego death in a nutshell, admitting we are not who we think we are. I am so much more than Angela. And it feels really uncomfortable and really vulnerable, even though I've known these things for a long time, to admit it to you, to say it on video and know that I'm going to post this. And oh, the judgment and the shame and the guilt and the weirdness and the squeakiness that's trying to wiggle its way into me and say, no, don't do this. Don't break this barrier. Don't tell anybody this truth because they're all going to laugh at you. Well, you know what? Maybe you will. Maybe you will think I should go back on all those 5 psych meds that I have worked so hard to no longer need day in and day out. I don't live numb anymore. It was shutting down everything about me that was energetically beautiful. And I didn't want that. And so I'm here stringing together all these thoughts about toxoplasmosis and how we need to know as a species that we have been infected and that we can fight back, and coming back around to the fact that I figured out that wormwood plant, is mentioned in the revelation of the Bible as making the water bitter and all the people being forced to drink it. But do you know that if we were forced to drink bitter wormwood tea, it kills all the different kinds of parasites that infect our bodies? And did you know that you get these parasites from meat, from fish, from dirt? They get into you in all sorts of different ways. And we don't even fight them hardly unless they cause a serious problem in the body. Well, how much more serious can we get than mind control and causing aggression and inhumane behavior toward other human beings? There is nothing worse in my book than that as an energetic infection in our species. And it is time to eradicate it. And here's how we do it. We decide it no longer gets to reside within us, that we are no longer energetically aligned with it in a way that it can be inside of our bodies. And then we pick a tool like wormwood, and we either steep it into a tea, or we can, I believe it's also known as artemisia in some parts of the world, but I'd have to double check that. I just learned that recently. But I felt led to say it in case somebody doesn't, in case that resonates with you differently. But we are able to get it in capsules and take it that way. There's actually a supplement that I've been using that I found on Amazon that is a wormwood and several other kinds of herbal combination, and it has helped. I feel the brain fog lift, and I feel, sorry, my phone went off. I thought I had it on Do Not Disturb. But I feel the difference that it has made for me as I've taken it. And I felt my body purge stuff. But we are an infected society in America, especially. We are getting attacked on all sides, from our medical industry, from our food industry, from the pesticide industry, from pest control. There are so many natural things that take care of everything that we buy chemically to use. And it's not necessary. And what you eventually, as you come into this awakening ascension process, will figure out is that none of the tools are necessary. You are the tool for your cure, for your healing. You are the tool. You know if you are trapped inside of yourself. You feel it. We call it depression. We call it anxiety. We call it uneasiness. It's like a tightness that wraps around and just binds you up. Whether it's here in your pineal gland, here in your throat chakra, around your chest, it feels like it's just clawing at your heart. You know what I'm talking about if I'm talking to you. You're feeling it right now. Command it to stop. Tell it doesn't get to reside within you. You do not have to live this way. You are so powerful. I am so powerful. Say it over yourself. I am so powerful that all I have to do is decide to start changing the words of my mouth, to change the beliefs of my life, to change my life forever. And that feels really big. But it is also the smallest, simplest thing you can ever do. Just start saying it no matter what. One of my affirmations lately, and I'm going to do a short one on this at some point and throw it up on the web, on YouTube, as one of the daily affirmations that we should all be speaking over ourselves as a collective. And that is, every single moment of my life only gets better and better and better. That's it. Every time I start to feel a little bit stressed out, every time I start to give in to the corruption and the consumerism and the insanity of this world that still has such a very, very fragile now, but still there, energetic hold on so many, especially right now in our election season here in America. It is Halloween night. I could feel the fear palpable in the air, but you know what? I could also feel this year was different than any year in the past. This year, there were so many of us collectively laughing in the face of fear and saying, we mock you with our Halloween. We don't live within you anymore, or under you, or in your jurisdiction. You have no power here. We are dressing up in mockery, not in respect. And that was an awesome feeling. And we love to celebrate. And we should celebrate victory over fear. Celebrate with me right now. What an amazing thing to conquer. And if you haven't conquered it yet, that's okay. There are so many of us out here who are working on it for you and have been for lifetimes. And we have faith enough for all of us that this is our truth. And I know these things all the way to my ancient eternal past, because I've been involved since the beginning of creation. I didn't know who I was when I was born into this life, but I knew that I was not the same as others, that I had a massive calling and a massive purpose. And for 42 years of my life, I fought to figure that out. And every time that I would pray about it or I would meditate on it when I kind of changed my views of spirituality, and started being more affirmative about getting to create my life and be more in charge rather than just leaving it in the hands of Source, um, and living out my soul contracts that I had come here to live. And I decided to sever those because I was awakened, right? I came to a conclusion of who I am. And it's a wild story because one night I was reading and I had been having these moments of clarity that my family thought was insanity, um, about who I am and why I'm here and all this stuff. And for a while, I was convinced I was crazy too because it just seemed way too unreal. And when I finally came to my husband, I told him, this is what I figured out about myself. But I don't understand why me. Why me? I am nobody and nothing in this world. I'm just me. And every time I've ever asked what I was here to be, that's all I ever heard. Just be you. You'll change the world by being who you are. It didn't have to do with my career. It didn't have to do with my abilities, with my having children, being a mom, being a wife, any of that stuff. It was all just about being me. And the me that I've been has been many faceted. I've gone through a lot in my life. I have gone through the trauma of living in a scarcity, poverty minded household as a child, but I was lucky and am grateful for the experience of having lived in that place with love. Despite the dysfunction and the dysregulation and all the neurodivergence that went untreated and unknown, and all the sickness and illness that ran rampant in my family and the chaos we lived, my family had constant chaos. I don't know if you've ever watched Bob's Burgers, but the intro to that, we had a family business, and when I watch that, it gives me PTSD because we went through so many of those things: break-ins, robberies, having to deal with pests, so much stuff, having, fires in our lives. My family had a curse, a generational curse of fire over them until I decided that I was done with that and I was going to break it. My apartment burned down in college. um, and that was the last in a long line of fires that had happened throughout our family. A cousin who had had a gas can or gas tank on a car blow up in his face because one of the other kids flicked a match at it and they didn't think there was anything in it because it was a abandoned car. And an aunt whose greenhouse burned to the ground one day. And it just so many weird things, burns in my family. My mom had had a time when a pressure cooker blew up and it burned all the skin off of both her ankles, 3rd degree, and she went through years of pain. But what I saw in my family was determination to always heal from whatever we went through and to love each other unconditionally, no matter what, no matter how hard it hurt or how abusive it felt. Because we were loving the divinity in each other more than we were hating the circumstances that we knew were not our truest, highest selves, and that we knew were not as important as taking care of our collective needs together. And that it caused some serious, deep codependency that wasn't healthy in a lot of ways. But within that, and coming out of that, and healing from it, we became some of the most energetically powerful beings on the planet. And we had joy in our lives because we did cling to the idea that the joy of the Lord was our strength. So, yes, I have some deep-seated issues I've had to work through from being told that I was sinful and that I was bad and that I was created wrong, especially when at about 38, 39 years old, I had an awakening revelation to the fact that I am pansexual and I am polyamorous. And I had been monogamous and straight my whole life. But I hadn't, because I had repressed memories from times when I was very young, trying to speak this truth to my parents and just being absolutely demolished by their words and their insistence it wasn't okay and that I had to fight it and that it made me dirty and wrong and sinful and gross and awful. And I am none of those things. You will not find a purer heart in any being on this planet. I guarantee it. I know this because I have been judged fully by the all. I have gone through my life review in this lifetime. And I passed. And that's why I'm here talking to you tonight. Because when I incarnated here, I knew that I was going to live life for millions of years on this planet until I had experienced living as every kind of species that's ever existed and every tribe of people, so that I would have a deep, deep understanding of the earth. My soul is directly cord tied to Gaia. I know this. I have felt her for years. I have felt her crying out in desperation to be freed, and I have helped unbind her in ways that I don't even know how to explain, other than I fight in ethereal realms, almost like a ninja spy in the spiritual. I do. I have a high calling. I have served on the Intergalactic Federation of Light in ninth dimensional realms, in past energetic existences. And I have a huge soul family there that I miss deeply and desperately, that I try to visit energetically occasionally when I am able to jump out of this realm and go there. And I have an office that I use in the seventh dimension. It's like a librarian's type office in the Akashic field in that dimension that I visit, and I use these super computers that are unlike anything that we can even imagine having here on Earth yet. They are just so lightning fast, and they sort and filter information and store it for our collective good, but they also recall and transmute energies and possibilities and probabilities, and they help me to gather all of this insanely large amount of information that I carry in my DNA. I am an awakened Akash, and I know that there's a whole field, right? I don't believe I'm the only one, but I am the Akash awakened. I feel it. I can't tell you everything that everyone can tell you. That's not my job, though. I always know what to say, when I need to say it, in the time, in that moment, because it's the only moment that exists. I can't carry all of that in this light body at all times. I am such an ancient soul that I have a fuchsia-colored aura. I don't know if you can see it, but I have seen it my whole life. Well, also being someone who sees energetic auras and knowing the meanings and feelings of those since I was a child, I knew that having red light in my aura could be indicative of problems. A lot of people who carry red, it's tinged around closer to their body, and then their auric field might have a little tinge of gray to it because they're not well. Whatever the color should be usually will shine through unless they're very, very energetically ill or diseased. But my fuchsia aura is also violet light. So I have red light and violet light mixed to give me this shimmering pink purple color that surrounds me. And then I have these golden energetic protection balls of light that just spread out for hundreds of yards around me now. It used to be very small, but I have increased in that ability to shield and protect myself from all of these things that would glom onto me and try to drag me back down. Because I'm highly magnetized as a being, and I have been under energetic attack many times in my life. There was a phase of life when I lost my brother to what we are still unsure completely whether it was a gun accident or suicide, because the circumstances were murky at best, and because he was the kind of person that never ever would have intentionally ended his own existence. And then a year and a day later, I lost my grandparents, and I was in my 30s, and my sister was very young at that time. I have a sister who's 11 years younger than me. And she is my only living immediate family member, really, that's left from the 5 of us that I grew up in a household with. And so the next year, the day after my brother's 1 year anniversary, I guess you could call it, lost date, we lost my mom and both of her parents. And my dad was in that vehicle also and witnessed all of this. And he somehow miraculously survived that incident. And our family went through hell. And then 9 months later, my sister had given birth to a beautiful baby girl named Violet. And a month to the day of her first breath, she took her last breath. And so we went through all of that. And a few weeks after that, I can't even tell you all the insanity that happened. My dad had a ruptured part of his gut and was septic and nearly died. And it was almost a year recovery when he had just recovered from the wreck and the spinal injury and the knee injury and all the bodily and mental, psychological, energetic trauma that he endured, having survivor's guilt, having watched my mom take her last breath. And I know some of this is very triggery for some of you because you've been through as bad or worse. And that's part of the reason I'm here today, to help you figure out how to arise. This is how we rise together. We go, we endured this pain and we made it through, and we are still here, and we are done with this. We don't want to live this way anymore as a species. And so we are choosing now to open our eyes in our hearts, in our minds, in our connection to source energy, where we are all intertwined. And I can't tell you how unbelievably, incredibly, unimaginably beautiful it is to hit a 13th resonant dimension. It's not really a dimension. It's more of a, what's the fabric of space and time and all that exists. It's energy interwoven in ways that are more beautiful than anything you've ever seen in this planet. And the way it feels when you are in that realm, the way it feels, it is so light. It is so weightless. It is a feeling of complete weightlessness in all ways. It is bliss. It is purity. It is authenticity. It is comprehension of all emotion. And as an emotional vortex, that's what I was born to do. Incarnate over and over and over and over and over so many lifetimes. And live through Akashic experiences of all of the emotions that have ever existed in the history of eternal human creation, so that I could come here comprehending how important it was to love through it all, so that I could help free this energy grid of Gaia through these intergalactic battles that I have fought, even while residing here in this realm. And there have been some weird ones. There have been some really hard ones. Right before our eclipse in April was intense. There was a huge battle for the souls of a dragon race, and I was involved in that. And in that battle, we won a war for the security of the grid matrix of the earth. And it was changed forever in that moment. And I know this because I'm the one who channeled the actual verbal words to cast the spell to undo what was done to the earth in binding her up and then set her free verbally, because that's how things work here, through words. Why do you think we make legal documents and sign them in agreement? Because words are binding spells. That's why it's so important that when you are reading whatever your text is that's giving you wisdom, you take heed of what it is telling you about yourself. One of the worst deceptions to me in the Bible is that it tells us we are fearfully and wonderfully made. I am fearlessly and wonderfully made. I will not be told by my own voice, which our brain registers as our truth, even if we don't want it to. It does. That's how it works. Our subconscious registers what we speak over ourselves over and over and over. I won't be telling myself I'm fearful. Why would I do that? There are things that are binding in this realm. Well, they used to be. They're not anymore. That battle I was telling you about, that night, we also changed the law of words from maritime, which was the old Atlantean way of being, that all of these esoteric, hidden secret societies have kept as their soul knowledge, all to themselves, and tried to use against us for so long. And again, remember, we've all been fighting these energetic and physical parasites without knowing it. And it is time to free ourselves from that. But we freed up maritime law, and it's no longer the rule of this land. Black magic doesn't work like it used to. It just doesn't. And I'm sure that any of you out there who are practitioners or have been or have known someone who is or involved with it or felt under the curse of it have felt a shift, because it is just not effective anymore. Nothing done without consent is going to be as effective in this realm anymore, because the earth gets to decide for herself now. Her consciousness, her sentience has been freed. So she can't just be commanded all the time or taken advantage of or used and abused. She will fight for herself now. Our earth is so intelligent. She can fix herself without our intervention if we just believe that she can. As a collective whole. That doesn't mean that she doesn't love our intervention, and that it doesn't fuel a lot of our passions, and that everything we do to help her doesn't make it easier and faster, because it does. So it's okay that we're intervening. But we need to understand that if we never do, and if we weren't here anymore, Earth would still be fine, because she is made perfect energetically. It is just a matter now of that reset happening. But it can only happen as we get there as well, as a species. And we realize that we were fooled for a long time, but we are no more able to be fooled. We've believed things that are more crazy than the truth as our truth, but we've had a really hard time accepting that it wasn't correct or ever changing those beliefs, because they felt scary and big and like there would be punishment or eternal damnation. Oh. How torturous was it to be told as a child over and over and over again that if I mess up, I was going to go to some eternal, fiery, awful place, separated forever. Now, there is some truth to that in the way of there are sentient beings that know better and chose not to do better. And they will have to account for that. And their energies will be transmuted and cast into what can sometimes be called the abyss. It's a black hole, basically, that they're going to have to go through. And their energetic remembrance will be stored in that event horizon. And the rest will be put through a cleansing, energetic, just change and transmuted and used in another way, because it can't be salvaged. It doesn't want to be. It's had to be made to go through this process. And I can honestly say that I know at some point in my past lives, I've had to go through that. It's part of the reason that so much of what I know about myself and where I came from, and the different incarnations I've lived as a goddess, or a person known as a goddess, different incarnations I lived as a peasant, as a baby that didn't make it because I starved to death with my mother at a very young age. I've lived some horrible and wonderful things. And I remember so much of it, but I don't remember it all still, because I had to go through that process. That's why I understand what happens and how it works. We don't lose our beingness. It cleanses us, but we have to start fresh and new before we can recover those memories so that they don't corrupt us any longer. We became corrupted, not always through fault of our own. And this was the only way that Source knew how at that time to cleanse and purge that kind of corruption from its system, so that we could eventually get to the point where there is no more energetic war within us or around us, and that we are living in a perfect state of peace, understanding that we can still be creators, all of us in our own right. We don't have to stop being who we are. We just have to be the best version of us and walk in our power and live in our flow and surrender into who we are, even when it feels big and scary. And that being said, I was reading one night about, I had just rewatched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And then there was this article on IFL Science. Shout out. I love your blog. I read it all the time. Maybe not every day, but so often. And it gives me so much joy. So thank you, IFLS. But I'm reading this article on there about how 42, which, mind you, in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. And then the supercomputer that gives that answer says you're not going to like it, but this is the answer. But maybe what we don't have is the right question. Didn't ask the right question. So the answer is 42, but what was the question to get to what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything, right? And then I'm reading this article, and it's outlining all of these different ways that 42 resonates throughout science and history, and the expansion rate of the universe, and these massive, crazy coincidental things. And referencing back to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the author said, "Oh, I just picked it as a joke. It wasn't anything real," but it was real, because the universe speaks in synchronicities, right? And I had just said to the person laying next to me, I am 42, this year. For real, because I didn't like the odd number of 41, so I went ahead and jumped to 42, and now that I'm 43, I'm still staying 42. I like 42. I didn't even know all this other stuff. I've just always liked the number. And when I reached it, I wanted to stay there. And so that's what I decided. But I'm reading this article and I start laughing, and then I start crying, and then I start laughing again, because I am feeling this pull inside of me saying, this is your truth. You are 42. And the question wasn't what was asked, it was who and at what age. Will that shift occur that will help us learn the answers to life, the universe, and everything? And I just was like, I sat there overwhelmed and floored and having all these flashbacks in these holographic scenes in my mind, almost like visions of all these past lifetimes just come flooding in. And then I started sobbing. And I was talking to my husband about the experience the next day, because it was late. It was late at night. And I told him, I was like, I had this revelation that I am 42. I am the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because I am just me. And he said, okay, that's interesting. You know, he was very practical about it. But he's known my big emotive self for many, many years. We were married for 16 years before we opened up our marriage in polyamory, and we're still together, and we're going on, I can't remember, 19 years this year of marriage. And a lot has changed in our lives, and in order for us to figure out who we are and become and fulfill our purposes. And I said, I don't get it. I don't understand. I know it's true. I know it's my truth, because I feel it in every fiber and every being, every part of me, every particle vibrates with this crazy assurance of yes, 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 you figured it out. This is who you are. And now we're going to start revealing more and more to you of who you've been and who you're going to be. And I said, why me? Why me? I feel like Moses. Like, no, I can't. I'm nothing special. I mean, I'm fighting a health battle. I'm fighting a mind battle all the time. I'm fighting grief. I'm fighting all these things. I can't be the answer for anything or anyone. And he looked at me and he said, why not you? Who else is there to do what you do and be who you are? And that's a really good dang question, isn't it? And I had to take that in. And he said, you're incredible. You're smart. You love people like nobody I've ever known. You have a heart for humanity and this planet that people don't understand at all about you, because they're not made like you are made. Why not you? And so from that moment forward, I just took it into my beingness that that's who I am. And somehow, in some way, my existence and my revelation of that truth at that age is going to impact and change the world in ways that cannot be reversed. And then we are going to start somehow understanding the point of life, the universe, and everything. And that has been becoming more and more true. And at that point, I said, you know what? I'm overwhelmed. I can't go telling people this stuff. Everybody will laugh at me. They're all going to laugh at you. I really thought I was losing my mind at that point. And there was a lot going on in our lives. So much shifting, so much changing, so much discovering of our identities, of our needs, of our boundaries, of things that we had not been allowed in our way of thinking and believing before we shifted and changed into our truth, into what made us feel right and good about our lives rather than what made us feel like we were struggling against our deeper inner selves to maintain on the exterior. Masking, always masking. Um, and I wasn't pretending that I was a joyful person. I've always been a joy-filled person. But I found myself in some dark, dark, dark shadow work after that. And so I went into isolation for years, um, kind of in this in between of like, I've had times after all the loss in my family, and then eventually I lost my father too 7 years later after he went through a crazy cancer journey where he was healed from stage 4 metastatic prostate cancer through holistic treatment and hypnosis in the Chipsa clinic in Mexico. Then he had other issues. He had a heart problem. See, here's the thing. It doesn't matter what the issue is, you can heal from it with the right intervention and the right mindset. But if you don't fix the root problem that created that disease, and you don't eradicate it from your body, and you don't tell it it can never come back, and you don't energetically change who you are in this life, in this body, to match who you know you can be, then you will end up with other diseases and other illnesses and other problems. And that's what I saw happen with my dad, sadly. He went through so many different life-threatening things. He had to have a quadruple bypass at one point because he had a massive heart attack. And it turns out it was the second one. And the one that had happened was years before, when they looked at all the charting and all the scans and whatever it is that they can measure that with scientifically. It's amazing. It's incredible what we can read about our bodies. That was trauma after trauma after trauma. And, my sister-in-law, my sister and I, we just didn't know how to cope with any of that. Like, we still felt like codependent children at our ages. And it just, we went through a lot. And we kept fighting. And, my sister went through meth addiction, and then we fostered her children for a time, and then she lived with us with them. And then when she moved out, it was even harder because she was sober and she was doing well, and it was time, but it still was just so hard, that loss of having them here all the time, and then this separation. And she's doing great. And her boys are doing amazing. For those of you out there who know me watching this, who know about Emily, and her story. And I hope she'll tell her story someday, because she was a very powerful, energetic being of light and love as well, a very ancient old soul. And but it's her story to tell. And so, and honestly, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I am or who I am today. She has helped me in so many ways to discover myself, to discover my power again, to free me from bondage that she could see over my life that I couldn't. And that's why I'm here. I want to help free so many of you from the bondage that you can't even see over your life. You think you're in a state of freedom, and you are completely bound. You are chained. And my heart breaks for you, because I know what that feels like. One of my energetic missions in this realm was to cut off over 1,000 years of karmic debt and cords that had bound up humanity. And I carried those into this life, and they had been wrapped around me for years. And as I kept awakening, as I kept getting stronger and stronger connections with energies, entities that we know as like Archangel Michael and Metatron and Ashtar and, Abraham Hicks, and I started being able to sense and feel these beings of light in different ways vibrationally. I could hear their voices. I could understand who they were and what they wanted of me and what I was supposed to do. And there was a night when I woke up and I heard my name, and it said, "Angela, come to the bathroom and look in the mirror." And I was just like, what? And I looked around to make sure that my partner was still in bed and he was sound asleep. And I said, "Did you say something?" And no answer. And so I got up and I went to the bathroom, which I probably would have had to do anyways, because I always am getting up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. That's a whole thing I'm working on with my healing too. But totally another story. So I go in there and I look in the mirror and I can see wrapped around my body these, I don't know how to describe it other than undulating, vibrating, pulsing, squirming cords just binding me like some kind of plant, jungle plant or ivy growing around me, just snaring me in every direction, just so tight. And they were getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And my arms were squished against my sides, and I was paralyzed. Like, it was wrapped around my ankles were stuck together. I could just see these glowing cords in the mirror around me. I couldn't even see my body because my body was darkened by whatever energy was coming off of these cords. It was like this net that just engulfed me. And they started to try and dig into my skin, and they were trying to embed themselves. And I froze and I was like, what is happening? And I heard two voices behind me. And in that moment of hearing these voices say, have no fear, we're here to help you, we're going to do this together, I recognized in my mind's eye, in my vision, the energies of Archangel Michael and Metatron. And so Michael was actually on my left and Metatron was on my right. And as I'm telling you this story, I can see it in my mind's eye still. It's so vivid, and it's something I'll never forget because it was so important for the history of our species and for the change that's been happening, that light workers everywhere have been working for years to bring about, since before my birth. And people have known for a long time that I was coming, even when I didn't know I was coming or who I was, and have prepared the way and have shared their knowledge and have helped me in this lifetime to figure these things out as they've happened so that I didn't lose my mind in this realm when I knew that I was tapped into my source power in other realms. As I started realizing what these things were I had done all my life with astral travel and lucid dreaming and going to other dimensions and helping heal and cure those places too. And that was all just normal for me until I realized it was real and not just dreams. Not just make-believe imagination times that I was jumping out of my body. And so I'm standing here in the bathroom in the dark. It's like 3 a.m. Okay. And it's a very powerful time of the night. Many people say that's when energies shift in this realm and switch from, one group of protection to another, whatever happens in that hour. There's a lot of spiritual people who awaken at 3 a.m. and do energetic work. And I've been one of them for a long time. There's a lot of nights that I'm up from the hour of 3 to 4, just channeling into this realm, wish casting, not witchcrafting, wish casting, speaking, spelling out the dream of the perfect societal world that we could all share if we can just imagine it real and decide that we get to have that because it's been proven that this is how it works. And so I can hear these two booming voices, but they're soft and they're gentle. And they're telling me to have no fear, that no harm is going to come to me, that I have known since before I came here that this would ultimately be something that I would do in sacrifice, in service for mankind, because I helped create this species. And I came here to help deliver them from all the horror and harm that befell them, that I could not protect them from, because I was bound for many, many years and kept from knowing who I was so that I could understand better what humans had gone through, so I could help them understand it themselves and work their way out of it and find a collective healing. And these two angels stood behind me, and each grabbed a handful of these vines on my back, and they're pulling them away from my skin like this. And they said, "We're both here because the spell that we are going to have you speak tonight is so powerful that each of us only has every other line." That's how it was given to us to keep safe until this moment. And I said, okay, whatever needs to happen, I'm in service. I'm here. I want to help. That's what I was created for. I house the emotional knowledge of our entire species, and I have had to spend in this lifetime more time than I want to even think about enduring those emotional fallouts in my knowing. I've had to transmute them in my body and live through ages and ages of suffering and hardship and horrors so that I could have the kind of compassion and love that I have for all of our known existence, in order to become strong enough again to help in this reality. And so these angels start telling me these lines to speak, and I couldn't repeat them if I wanted to, because it was all in the moment, and it just made sense. And it was on about removing blocks and removing energetic binds and removing cords and breaking curses and changing the DNA of our species and creating a new crystalline grid and creating a new security system where Earth has control of its own security, and it can't be hacked and it can't be changed. And there was just all this stuff, and it was about 30 minutes of each of them. Michael would speak a sentence and I would say it out loud. Metatron would speak a sentence and I would say it out loud. And as I did, these bindings just kept trying to grow tighter and tighter. They knew that we had come for them and that their time was up. And as we spoke, as we got closer to the end of this spell casting, wish casting session, this was more of a spell than wish casting. This was energetic spiritual warfare. That I came here on behalf of all of us to fulfill that mission. And I did. And we won. As we got toward the end, those vines, they began to shake and vibrate, and they were terrified. You could feel the trembling in them. I could feel it. You couldn't, they weren't on you, but I could feel the trembling in them. I could tell that they knew that we had won. And as they trembled, they got looser and looser to where they were standing around my body, just a couple of inches. And the parts that the archangels had in their hands. And when I say archangels, I want you to understand that these are energetic entities. These are ancient beings of wisdom and accumulated knowledge, and they don't just present like men. In my vision, in my mind, I saw them with faces and bodies, and they have a very specific look, but they don't too. It depends on how they want to be revealed to you. And so in that moment, though, they have their hands full of vines. And Michael tells me to say, "And so it is finished, and it is done, let it be." And I say that. And then Metatron tells me to say the same sentence again, "And so it is done, it is finished, let it be." And as I do, they let go of these vines and they unsheathe their swords and they take them and stick them in there and just slice through. And these vines just wither into dust and nothingness and disappear like they pixelated out of my vision. There was nothing left. There was nothing on the floor. There was no evidence of this happening. There was no burning or scarring where these had been cutting into me. It was just gone. It was gone. And I felt 1,000 years of karmic debt lifted off of humankind that I had been carrying in my cells, in my DNA in this realm, as part of my soul contract to live through and endure and break off of us generationally. And here's why. I learned recently that in our DNA, we carry 14 generations of trauma and emotion and knowing of what happened in some way inside of ourselves. And when we are born of trauma and we are born of brokenness and we are born of exhaustion and we are born through all of these things that, I mean, if you think back 14 generations, the wars alone that our species have endured, it's no wonder there are so many people in this age who are mentally ill and unable to cope. They have brokenness after brokenness after brokenness. People who lost their energetic battles passed down through their cells, and hopelessness and poverty and lack and scarcity and oppression and, bondage. I am here to tell you, we don't live under that anymore. And if you are still feeling that in your life, it is time to say, I declare and decree that I am free of all bondage, energetic and physical. And I will no longer allow it to take space in my mind, body, heart, or soul. And this is my birthright, to end any soul contract that I made with anyone but myself. The only soul contract that you can't break in this realm is one you made with yourself. And let me tell you, there have been plenty of times I wanted to give up and not keep going. But I knew that I had a soul contract with myself. Suicide was not an option. In fact, that's one of the energetic bondages that I came here to atone for. And that's a long story as to why and the lives that I lived that I didn't make it. There's other ones. I had a life where I was disobedient to my parents and it ended in my demise, and that set our entire human species back centuries of work. And so I had some serious, deep energetic wounds of my own. And my family came from years of energetic trauma before. And so much that was endured and passed down through our DNA structures. And I tell my children all the time, I have two beautiful children. They're incredible. They're ancient souls too. I know that they are wise beyond their years. I know that they are trustworthy. I know that they are good human beings. I know that they would never intentionally harm another soul. And that is the most important thing that any of us can ever come to the conclusion of for ourselves as our truth, that we would never intentionally harm another soul for any reason ever. That is the law of consent. That is a universal truth that has to be abided by in order for us to all live in safety and peace and harmony together. And we are getting there. And every person who watches this and every person who takes this in is getting there faster and faster every day. And when you hear my truth, I hope it helps you to realize your own truth and to come into alignment with who you are and to not be afraid, because I can tell you the fear I have battled to get to this point where I was able to say these things tonight and not be shaking physically about it and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm making all these claims over my past And people are not going to understand. But you know what? The ones who are supposed to understand, you do understand, and you do believe me, and you do know that I speak truth. That I know that housed in my centers of wisdom and knowledge are all the emotions that any of us have ever experienced. And I've atoned for them for the last 1,000 years. And before me, Christ atoned for them in many, many ways. And other people have atoned for them and sacrificed, and people you'll never even hear about because they came here, they did their energetic work, they made it to the end of their journey, and they left. And then they came again and again and again to fight on your behalf. And we know them in this realm as light workers sometimes, or prophets, or ascended masters. But I have memories of being Barbelo. I have memories of being Isis and Aphrodite. That doesn't mean that I actually was their incarnate selves, but somehow I am tapped into their wisdom centers. And they are a part of me as much as I am a part of them, as much as we are all a part of each other. And I'm not the only one who could tap into this knowledge. It's just that this is what I was created to do. I'm not going to make some kind of claim that I am spectacularly special or above anybody else because I don't feel that way. I don't even feel worthy to be saying this right now, but I know that I am because I know what I've done in this life and in many, many others in order to make it to this moment right here today and publish this video for you to hear my story so that maybe it can be the key that unlocks the prison in your story. Because I have always wanted my story to be the key that unlocks somebody else's prison so they don't have to live there anymore. And I never really thought I had much of a story, even with everything I've been through, even with all the things I've conquered and overcome, with all the grief I've learned to tame, with all the demons I've learned to become friends with all the shadows I've embraced, with all the darkness I've had to face about myself, even in this life when I thought that I was being as good a person as I possibly knew how, and I was. I have never once not thought within myself about whether I'm doing the best I could possibly be doing or not. Not in this life. I've always cared. I've always cared about everyone. And I didn't understand my neurodivergence. I didn't understand that I'm energetically created differently than others. I didn't know nutrition. I didn't know how to take care of myself. I mean, the things that I've had to overcome have been immense in this lifetime, and yet they still feel minuscule compared to some of the things that some of the other people out there that I watch and admire and have learned from and have grown my faith through hearing their stories and grown my courage and my bravery to stand up and say, if they can say their truth, I can say mine, come what may. Because what I do know is that everything is always going to be okay, no matter what. Because we are eternal. But what else I know is that we are free now to choose to use our words in a way that we've never had the opportunity to use them before. And that means that because we have done away with maritime law as the ruling power over words in this realm, and I was not the only one involved with that. There were thousands of souls involved with that. I don't know any of them personally in this life, but I know every single one of them in other vibrational realms. And it was a huge collective effort to make this happen, and it has been ongoing for centuries. And we are coming to accumulation of being able to celebrate all of this work and remember what was done and how it happened, both the good and the bad. Because there's been a gap in our collective memory, an intentionally created missing pieces of history to keep us blind, deaf, and dumb to the truth of how energetically powerful and incredible and eternal and immortal and invincible we really are. Humans are one of the most energetically powerful things in existence. That's why parasites want to live inside of us. Our blood plasma has so much energy, it could power the world, basically. It's insane. And yet here we are, tired and worn out and barely getting by and struggling. That is not how life is meant to be lived, or meant. Life is meant to be easy and enjoyable and pleasurable. And for some reason, we came to this point, and I still don't know that whole history. I guess that's someone else's to reveal or mine to learn still, of why we reached a point of energetic corruption and catastrophe and chaos. If we chose that, or if something happened and we were injured somehow, just unknowingly, because as creators, we were not all knowing. We made things to see what would happen because it intrigues us. We like to create. We like to, if you're artistic, you like to make art. If you're musical, you like to make music. If you dance, you like to create dances. If I don't know what your passion is, but we all have one. We all have one. And we all want to keep living those things. But how much more incredible could the things we come up with and the things we create and the things we do be if we were all free to pursue those at our very highest level of existence, because we're living in a world where everyone feels safe and provided for, because we live in a world of absolute, utter, and complete abundance beyond comprehension, and we are being lied to that there is scarcity of anything. We don't have to believe it anymore because it's been energetically proven. And the research is out there. I encourage you to go look for yourself. Go dig. Go try to prove me wrong, please. But you can't, because this is my truth. And this is the only truth that exists for me in this lifetime. And I have no fear saying that because I know it so deeply. And I still have good days and I still have rough days. Today was actually kind of a rough day. Energetically, I was drained. I often feel the collective energy in the atmosphere, despite my shielding, despite my spell casting, despite all the energetic protection. There are times that that energy is allowed to overtake me because I am part of the process of banishing it from our entire collective consciousness. And this is the energetic work I do day in and day out. I teach at a 6th dimensional soul school on a regular basis. I actually asked for a hiatus recently because I had just become so wiped out in this realm that the idea of traveling back and forth and being consciously aware of that was too much. I have answered every call that has ever been placed on my life but one. And there was a day that I just couldn't answer the call, and I cried all day that day because I had to say, I can't. I am too deplete. I am too worn out. I am too spent. But you know what's amazing about it? When we can't answer the call, we don't have to feel guilt or shame. When we can't rise up from some kind of supernatural weakness that we are battling through, it's okay sometimes, because there are other people who can answer that call. They may not do it the same way you did. It may not have the same result, but the outcome of that energetic work will eventually lead to the best possible outcome because they answered the call, period. And sometimes it gets passed on and passed on and passed on for generations until someone becomes strong enough to go through that and conquer. And that's what we call generational curses. These have been curse breakers. And some of them, they came and they didn't know what they didn't know. And when they got here, it was too much. It happens. Not every soul is as strong as every other. And we all agree, consensual to come, because that's the law of the universe. Nobody can force you to do anything. If you are here of your own consent. You chose this. You're like, I wouldn't have chosen this life. Well, you know what? There's a lot of things about mine I didn't think I would have chosen either, but I allowed it to happen until I no longer needed the lessons from it to know my truth and to step into my power and to tell the world that this is who I am. You know, my name, Angela, means God's messenger, and my middle name, Nicole, means victorious. So I have always known that I am a victorious messenger for God. What we know is God, source energy, source power. When I was a little kid, I would prophesy. And as I got older, I would walk up to strangers on the street and I would tell them things that I felt led to say. And they would always just be overwhelmed with emotion or gratitude or shock and awe that out of nowhere, I just walked up and said, I feel I'm supposed to say this to you right now. And it was always the right message. And so I learned at a very young age the power of words. I learned at a very young age to listen to my intuitive self. I learned that grown-ups thought I was intimidating at 6 years old. I learned to mask that and hide it away. I learned to suppress myself and make myself small. I learned to hide within my flesh and became very obese at one point, weighing over 400 pounds. And I've had to fight my way back out of that. And I'm still on that journey to perfect health. But I know beyond a shadow of a doubt now that I get to live that life. And then I get to keep speaking it until it happens. And it will happen. And this is the energetic work I do in this realm. And this is what I was created for, but it is not easy here. Because there is no financial or emotional support for this kind of existence other than what comes from Source. I am so blessed that my husband takes care of me, but there have been many years we've struggled. And so, you know, again, my ego is trying to stop me from saying this, but if anyone out there hears my story and you want to connect with me on some kind of level, reach out, put it in the comments, email me, angelaNwakefield@gmail.com. Angela Nicole, angelaNwakefield@gmail.com. You know, if you're meant to connect with me, it will happen. It will work out, because I know that that's how life works. But I know that there are people who've been searching for me, and I have been in hiding. I have been unable to speak my truth fully until recently. I have been in denial. I have been human, right? I'm having to ascend, as one of my favorite ascended masters, R.J. Spina, speaks. I'm having to ascend the frequencies. I'm having to get past them just like you are, but I am there more often than not now, because I know what I know, and it's undeniable proof. It's beyond anything I've ever understood before or comprehended fully. It's so amazing and so simple that it feels surreal and impossible. But it's not, and we get to dream up the world we want to create together. And I, as the creator of my world, always dreamed of a place full of peace and compassion and love and kindness and caring and more than enough in every way. And so I know that there are some of you out there that are just shaking your heads, and that's okay. Maybe you'll wake up to it, maybe you won't, maybe this is your journey, maybe it's not. But there are others of you who are looking at me and going, I knew you in your other eras. I knew you in your other times. I've known you in other lifetimes, and I know you. And I sense you, and I feel you, and I know that what you say is true, and I want to be a part of this revolutionary shift in mankind's timeline so that we can dream real world peace, and global communion and the ability to live free and abundant and not be entrapped in these densities that keep us running ourselves to death when we don't have to die. And I know that's a big claim to make, but there is energetic proof of it right now in scientific journals and scientific articles. And there are a ton of other people on YouTube that you can look up who are saying the same things as I am. Well, maybe not quite the same, because this is my story. This is me coming out to the world saying, this is who I am. And it feels big and it feels scary, but I don't listen to fear anymore. I won't allow it to hold me back, and I won't allow it to hold back our species any longer. I absolutely rebuke and revoke fear and its invitation in this realm on behalf of the all that is. And I get to speak on behalf of all because all channels through me, because I have proven myself worthy. I know my value in this realm. And I am deserving, just as you are, of living the life that we can't even fathom fully yet, but we can absolutely imagine. We may not be able to imagine it being true, but we can imagine it existing somewhere, somehow, in some way. And if we can come into agreement that way, we can make it happen. And maybe we'll just wake up and something will have shifted so massively that everyone understands what's happening. There's no fear, there's no chaos, there's no worry, there's no concern. We're just instantly better and different. And we get to speed up this timeline and not keep suffering even as we continue healing and figuring things out, but in a way where we feel secure and safe to do so and to keep discovering what we want to become as creators in this life. So, all that said, that was a lot. That was a lot for me. I feel that there's probably scattered bits of holes in my story where my brain was in another realm where things were coming too fast to say. If there was something that I started and didn't finish, a thought about, and you have a question, put it in the comments. I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep channeling through my channel things that I know need to be heard and shared with the world. And they are my mission and my purpose to bring to you because I'm the one who did these things in this realm. I'm the one who experienced them and lived them. I'm the one who has brought about some of the changes that are happening in this world. And I was also unable to come forward any sooner because there were real dangers, even in the energetic realms for a long time that kept me concealed. Concealed like a, weapon, I guess. And so I could actually kind of say, yeah, I was created to be an energetic weapon of love, of change, of vibrational frequency and resonance that couldn't be stopped. And there is literally nothing that can stand against us when we come together in this way. And that's what the things that would stand against us are most afraid of us figuring out. They don't want us to know that there is nothing that can harm us once we decide that that is our truth. I want you to come into agreement with me right now, even if you have the faintest desire to wish that what I'm saying could be true, even if it feels completely surreal and and impossible and unfathomable to you right now in the place that you're trapped in, your subconscious programming. But you see it in my eyes. You feel it in my energy. Maybe you can see it in my aura. Oh, that was it. I didn't finish off that explanation of my fuchsia aura. Because I am so ancient, my light is what is known as tired light. There's a recent news study that's come out about tired light. Go Google it, look it up. It's very intriguing. I have tired light from the ancient parts of me that are so far out in expansion in our galaxy that the light has to travel millennia to reach this place. And then I have my vibrational earth body light, which is violet, which is the highest form of pure light that we can attain and see physically in this realm. There are of course, other things, other lights out there, but we will discover those as we go along. And those technologies keep improving and changing and proving what we already know. And we keep as a species saying that those things, those principalities of the air and flesh that have ruled for too long and kept us in confusion and chaos and kept us in oppression and kept us from living our best lives and kept us from birthing children who have 14 years of victory in their systems, of healing in their DNA, rather than 14 years of trauma and devastation and destruction. That's one of the things I was talking about my kids, telling my kids, and I didn't get to the point on that. If you can heal yourself before you have children, they can be born with 14 years of victory in their DNA, of knowledge, of healing and overcoming all of those things you had housed in your 14 years of traumatic DNA memory. Because if you fix them, then you do not pass them on. And that's why the work I do feels so important. We have got to break the cycle of passing on pain to the next generation. We have got to teach them from the beginning that they are powerful and mighty beings, that they are incredible, and that they get to speak their life real too, as long as we all live by the one basic law of consensually, never intentionally harming another being. I am being. I am peace. I am love. I am authenticity. Authenticity is now the most powerful energetic force in all of known history. It was love, but love can make us do wonderful and horrible things. Therefore, we had to change it to authentic intention. Actions, deeds, words, they all have to pass the test of authentic intention in order to hold power in this energetic grid, in this matrix any longer. Anything that doesn't pass that standard will be seen for what it is. It will be revealed for the inauthenticity of its energetic intention. No matter what the words are, no matter how much someone does it out of love, you could do terrible things in the name of love. All is not fair in love and war. There is no fairness in war. One side is always the aggressor and the oppressor, and the other side is always the victim. And the line seems blurry sometimes, but sometimes there's more than one side to a war. There's multifacets, and it's coming from all directions. And we have been under bombardment for so long energetically that we have just been in a tailspin, a spiral. It's time to stop the madness. It doesn't do any good to be mad anyways. Being mad, being angry, all that does is shorten our telomeres and shorten our lives. Telomeres are what keep you young. And we've been told that they are capped, but they can regenerate. Go look that up too. There's studies about anger and what it does to our body, how it harms us. When I tell you I consume information, I consume as much as I can because I want to be informed and I want to feel wise. And I wanted to get to the bottom of this puzzle that had been torturing me my whole life as to what's the point? Why am I here? Well, I figured it out. I'm here for you. I'm here for me. I'm here for our children. I'm here for our planet. I'm here for our universe. I'm here for it all. And I want you to be here for it all too. I want you to feel it real. And then I want you to experience it real in the now moment, this one moment that exists. We get to do that together. There are people right now online who are going to be holding global meditations. I know RJ Spina is one of them. His stuff's incredible. A big shout out to him if he ever hears of me or sees this video, for what he helped me overcome and accomplish in my own mental battles through his books and his incredible just continued speaking and sharing of his knowledge and wisdom. And there are some others that are on YouTube and different places that we are fighting for you, and we want to be fighting with you. So join us and stop living afraid. Stop fearing the things you've been told to fear, because anything that tells you to fear something has an agenda. Now, that agenda might be like a parent where they're trying to keep you safe, right? I, of course, taught my kids to fear a hot burner on a stove because it can burn them. But I didn't teach them to fear speaking in public because that can't hurt them. That can only empower them. And it's kind of the same way in many of our circles in life. We get taught to fear things that could actually empower us because they don't want us to be empowered. If we are afraid of speaking up, nobody ever hears what we have to say. It can never change anything. If we are afraid of acting out of line or not following all the rules, then we can never know who we fully are, because we're all conforming to what we've been told we should be rather than living who we were created to be. And I know that this has become a long video, and I definitely didn't intend to stay up this late. I need rest. Send me energy and love, and I am sending it back out to you in every way. I have got to go get some sleep tonight. This was a lot to unveil, unfold, unwind. But I can't rewind it. This is who I am. These are the reasons why I've changed the way I've changed. For those of you who are watching my spiritual journey and keep asking me, why are you different now? My character is not different. My love is not different. My internal desire to see our species live healthy and whole has never changed. My desire to be a kind, good-hearted, exceptionally accepting person has never changed. I didn't understand when I was younger that I couldn't trust everybody because I was always trustworthy. That's a really hard place to grow up. It makes you feel like a fool all the time, over and over. And you know what? That's exactly what the world wants you to feel. You are not a fool if you have loved too hard in this lifetime with too much trust, because you know how you would have behaved in the same situation. That makes you human, and it makes you good. That doesn't mean you allow yourself to keep being fooled. You have to learn discernment. We have to learn to see through the veil. It is torn, it is thin, it is almost gone. Let's rip it down. Let's burn it up energetically and say, never again will we be blinded, deafened, or muted to our own incredible divinity and truth of existence. And it is time to take this world to the next level of freedom. And I cannot wait to join you there. I hope I get to meet every single one of you someday, give you a huge hug, and tell you I'm so happy we made it together. And perhaps I will. Right now, I've been in isolation so long in my healing journey, it feels like I'm never going to meet anybody in person again. But I know that this has only been a season, and just as everything good or everything bad ever has, this too shall pass. And I am stepping into a new place in my power and in my flow, and I am surrendering right now. I am surrendering, and I had to close my eyes because I have to go in that place inside myself that knows this is right, this is good, this is not something to be afraid of. I surrender into flow, I surrender into allowing, I surrender into cosmic energetic service just as I have every day since I was born, the first time, but especially in this lifetime. I can't say I haven't had lifetimes where I didn't rebel or I didn't give up or I didn't call it quits. I did. I absolutely did. We've all been there. We've all gone through that. We've all come and been something or someone that we didn't know how to handle. And that's part of what we've all had to heal from. This has been a hard world to stay sustained in, but it shouldn't be. That's the secret that everyone has been unable to understand. This life is actually made to be lived very easily, and we just speak it real together. I love you all so much. What is your I am? I hope you'll share it with me. I hope you'll share it with the world, no matter how crazy making it might feel. You're not alone. You're not alone if you're having an existential crisis and you don't know how to cope with that. It was a hard change for me, but then it was almost instant once I finally figured out that I don't have to be afraid of something that isn't true. If I get to create my life through my belief, I get to believe what I know in my intuitive self, and I get to not believe any of that other stuff that made me live afraid. There is nothing to fear. If you are someone who grew up in a Bible-based religious structure like I did, that should be ingrained in you more than anything else. Fear not. There is nothing to fear. Have no fear of the days ahead. No man can add an hour or a minute to his life by worry. And yet, there's so much fear interwoven into that whole structure that it keeps us bogged down just trying not to fear the fear of everything. We're told to fear everything that isn't that one specific thing. And that's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's intentional. And I hope that you can see that. And I hope it doesn't make you angry. I hope it doesn't make you defensive. I hope it doesn't make you feel aggravated. None of this is meant to shake anybody's faith. It's meant to increase your understanding of what faith can truly become when you know how to wield it properly. When you realize that faith is an energetic, I don't like using the word weapon. It's an energetic tool. That's the word. Faith is an energetic tool that we are allowed to use to make powerful changes in this world. And it's only faith until it becomes real, and then it's proven. And I have had to prove out my faith over and over in life. There have been some very hard times, as I mentioned, and I only mentioned a very minimal fraction of the emotional and physiological things that I've endured in this life. But I got through them all, and so can you. And together, we can get through it easier and faster. So, I'm going to go get some rest so that I can keep being myself, keep being me. And I know that I will be sustained, whatever comes my way, and that I can rest peacefully and easily and wake up refreshed and rejuvenated. And whatever my circumstances are, they are less important than my state of being. So choose how you are being tonight. I am being hopeful. I am hope in a world that needs it desperately. I am peace in a world that doesn't believe peace can exist. I am energy in a world that is deplete and thinks that it's a resource that doesn't have enough to go around. I am everything that is right and good and whole and healthy and happy about this universe. And I want you to be those things with me too. You must begin to say these things over your life, though. I am absolutely attuned with the highest power in existence. And it is on my side, and it is on your side. And even if it feels like we're on opposite sides, we're not. Because if you are human and you want what's best for everyone in all ways, then you will surrender into whatever that looks and feels like, knowing that you can trust that it's going to be the best possible outcome. One more shout out before I go to Brian Scott, who painted this picture behind me. This is a luck sigil picture, and it absolutely has brought so much beauty and comfort into my life. So if you ever see this or hear this, I hope that you can see my pretty picture hanging on my mantle there, under my mantle. Crookedly. It got bumped earlier, but I am happy to be of service, and I am looking forward to spending more time getting to know all of you better and revealing more as we go along and giving more details and hopefully making shorter videos at some point that can speak to you more quickly. But this one was a big one, and it was important. I have to get all of this said, and I have to put it out there, and I have to stop living afraid of my truth, because it is who I am. Good night.